All right, this is Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skill Sessions. And today, my guest is Thomas Stewart. Is that correct?
That is correct. Hello, Mr. Henk.
Hello. So, what do you got going on?
Well, currently I'm in the middle of several projects, but recently, under the banner of 13 Days Publishing, I put out my newest book, Bloody Shores and Other Nautical Nightmares.
Okay. And what's that about?
Something's killing in the water, and it ain't no shark. Maxwell Davidson has his work cut out for him when he's assigned by World of Weird magazine to investigate and write an article surrounding a string of brutal slayings at the popular summer hotspot, Sunny Shore Resort. Some believed it was shark attacks, others believed it to be a deranged killer. When the nightmarish truth is revealed, however, the investigation quickly turns into a struggle for survival just to tell the tale, paycheck or not. It includes two bonus short stories.
So that would be the what do they call it? The elevator pitch of the novel.
Yes,
Okay, roughly how long does it run? Is it like 200 pages, 300, 400, 1,000? What?
86.
Oh, even even less than 200. So it's kind of like a novella.
It's a novelette with two added stories.
Okay, so what you have the main story about the shark, but that might not really be the killer, but like something involving a shark and the killer, and then you have two additional stories as well.
That is correct.
What are
All of
they?
them nautical based.
Okay, and they're all like roughly horror based, I take it.
Yeah.
So what's the general premise of the other two?
General premise, well, of one of them is about a guy just trying to enjoy a night out on his boat when things start happening. His boat gets rocked around and he hits his head. And when he wakes up, he finds this mysterious young girl in the boat with him. Unfortunately, she has a much darker secret and reason for being there. The other one is about the misadventures, the tragic misadventure of a cruise liner.
Okay.
All of these are all of these have one basic thing in common besides the fact that they take place in water. All of them involve some kind of giant sea monster and some sort of seafaring cult.
Oh, kind of like a mix of like the Lovecraft, weird creatures and Nessie.
Very much so. In fact, in the primary story, Bloody Shores, um, the monster is described as if the gill man from the creature from the Black Lagoon were to have start hitting the gym and juicing 3 times a day.
Okay. And how do you interrupt the sales? Are they first person? Are they third person? How do you tell
So two of these stories are in first person and the other is in third. Sometimes it's a mix. The primary story, Bloody Shores, is written in first person. Um, the second story is in third, and the last is in first again.
them? Okay. Do you find like the thing? So there are both advantages and disadvantages first person. Like the advantages are like you get like everything spelled out the way the character sees it. The disadvantage is like it's one closed perspective. So what do
Yeah.
you find?
Well, I used to write primarily in first person when I first started out because I was writing for No Sleep. Um, Third person started just sort of slowly integrating into my writing style um, as time went on, and I fully explored both styles. Um, you are right. When it comes to third person, it is fun to be able to get take multiple perspectives. It even allows me to take the monster's perspective if I see fit. Where, but with first person, I always feel like I can usually strike a much more emotional chord with it because I can more or less just put myself in the driver's seat as that character. With first person point of view, I find it to be a lot more. Writing is a lot like acting, it, or it can be. And with first person, I feel like it even more so accentuates that.
Right. Okay. Well, also with the script is kind of spelled out like it could either be mostly one person seeing everything, so you're seeing everything through his vision, or it could be like multiple different perspectives, all looking at the same thing.
Right, right.
So,
It
like,
can be.
what do you think when you approach it? It's like if you're doing first person, is it like more the characters encountering the creature or the creature itself?
Um, it's more a bit of both. A lot of emphasis will be placed on the character's encounter with the creature, but it'll also I also tend to try and dive into so with first person it is mostly about the actual encounter. Um though sometimes I will weave it in about the actual creature itself if I see the need to.
Okay. And I mean I one thing I do is I do like when I read a novel, I've gotten to the thing where I kind of like will see in first person, but from different viewpoints. Like so one person's first person, then another chapter will be a different person's first person. So you kind of see like how different people see things.
Yeah. Um so I have done something very similar to that. Story to one of the things I'm a big fan of is epistolary storytelling. My very first novella um explored that. It's titled Mortimer. Um it was the very first book I ever started working on, and it was told from a viewpoint of newspaper headlines and recorded 911 calls because I was a big fan of listening to old 911 calls. Um, so I sought to sort of emulate that and use that to tell the story of a serial killer's 10-year reign of terror um, in a city in New York.
Is that where you're from, New York?
No, no, actually, I'm from North Carolina.
Oh, I live in New York. Yeah.
Ah,
It kind of depends on what area of New York is like. It kind of goes up and down depending on local politics, who's mayor, local population, all that sort of stuff.
right.
So, do you have an extensive library of stuff out there? Is this like your first venture into the work? What's going on?
No, so actually, Actually, Bloody Shores and Other Nautical Nightmares marks my 22nd release.
Okay.
Um,
Have they all
so
been
yeah,
like kind of like shorter works? Some been longer works? What's going on?
so most of them, the majority of them are short story collections. Um, I have about I think seven novellas, and I would have three novels, except that two of these three novels are currently out of print. I currently have a I have two novels and a short story collection out of print. The short story collection, through the same press, will soon be seeing a return. The novels are yet to be determined. The third novel, which is my proudest work to date, um, came out this past Halloween, titled Allison's Tears.
Okay. So are they all in print or some are out of print for now, but you're planning to resurrect them through a new publisher?
Yeah. Yep. Um, all are found on Amazon and on my website, except for the aforementioned novella, Mortimer. That one is available only through my website,
Okay, and what's your website?
www.corpsechildsanctuary.com/shop.
Okay. So, but Corpse Child Sanctuary would be the website, and the shop would be the page on the website where you can buy stuff.
That is correct.
And if they order from your website, is it like print on demand or is it something you could sign and send to them?
Both. So the way it works with that is a customer will buy it. I will have it printed and shipped to me, usually via Amazon. Um, then I would sign it, add in some other little goodies, and I would ship it back out to them.
Okay. Well, would it there be an exception for stuff like with Crystal's like book production company? Would you have to basically go through them and their website to get it?
To get it signed? No.
No, to get a
So,
copy.
no, no, I wouldn't have to. Um, it would be cheaper, but I wouldn't have to. Sometimes, a lot of times, what I do with my books is I will buy them at retail cost. That way, I can use Prime shipping to have it sent to me in 2 days,
Okay.
and do it that way. And of course, that would just mean I'd have to adjust the price to account for that.
Don't you pay a bit more if it's retail price and like author copies?
Say that again.
Like if it's an author copy, like author copies would be like I don't know what it is. It depends on the book, but it's usually like four something, like 425 or 455 a copy. Whereas like if it's a retail price, it could be like $12 or $16 or whatever.
Right, but it would still be a little bit more, even with author copies, due to shipping. Whereas the way I was doing it with where I'd pay retail, it was no shipping and I could get it in 2 days rather than 2 weeks.
Okay. But what you have it shipped to you and then you'll like sign it and like maybe add a goodie like a bookmark or something and they ship it to them?
That is correct.
Okay. And most of you said most of what you have is like they're short stories. What would people buy? Would they buy like a bigger collection or would they buy like the novel? You have a few novels out, I believe, right?
I I have several novellas. Um, it really depends. So, I've not had a very consistent uh, stream of buyers from the website, admittedly. Um, but the ones that do, I've noticed they do gravitate more towards my novellas and or some of my short story collections. Um, primarily, um, of note, being a signed copy of my 2023 Halloween novella release, Finding Pigman.
Okay, but you're saying like some of the stuff is available just through you, some of the stuff is available just through web. I'm
Right.
not sure how it all works. Like if people
Okay.
wanted to find yourself, would they have to go to a bunch of different venues to see it, or is there one place where everything is available?
So, no. Again, primarily Amazon is where I'm available. Um, through my
It would
website,
it'd all
through
be
my
linked
web,
under your author name?
yeah, yeah, under my name, Thomas Stewart. My website has all of my paperbacks available. Some of my ebooks. The only one that you only find on my website is my novella Mortimer. But that one is available in ebook, paperback, and hardcover.
Okay.
And that's the only hardcover
Uh,
edition of any of my books.
okay, so how many do you have out now as far as like how many books, how many like I guess some of your short stories like they're almost like little chapbooks?
So, in total, I have 23 releases, um, or 22, minus, again, minus the three currently out of print ones. Um, and that is including the novels or novel currently, all of my novellas, and my short story collections, including two novelettes um, and two short stories I published on Kindle Unlimited.
Okay. And what do you is there a theme you try and stick with? Is it like aqua horror, cosmic horror? Like is there kind of a link that ties them all together?
Sometimes. So for my collections, most of my collections are unthemed, with the exception, of course, being the homicidal artists, the currently out of print Skin That Screams, and the and Bloody Shores. Those were the only three I did that were themed. Everything else, it was all the other collections, it was just horror as a whole. Um, with my novellas, of course, it's the same.
But do you
And it
try and think of something like a homicidal maniac in most of them, or like some weird creature or something like that? Like, is there
oh,
like an overriding like kind of a like style that you stick with?
um, no, no, not necessarily, because I don't try to go for a specific theme other than just horror. Um, I will tend to spread my tendrils into several different avenues of horror. Some are paranormal, some are supernatural, others are uh, like more grounded slashers.
Kind of like Henry the
And
Portrait Serial Killer, that sort of thing.
yeah, um, and Other and some are just some are creature features like Bloody Shores or Finding Pigman. Um, and then some are straight up splatterpunk. Like my current personal best-selling novelette, Is This What Y'all Want? And uh and another one titled Eye for Eye, as well as an extreme horror collection I did titled Hive Town USA Volume 1. So, in short, I can range from your typical supernatural horror, um, that's more about mental and emotional scares, all the way down to your gritty and grotesque extreme splatterpunk horror.
Okay, if you look at like so there's kind of a difference between the way people approach stuff. Like a lot of the early like Universal monsters, like each one is like a different story. They don't all necessarily live in the same universe and they interact and all that stuff. But if you look at someone like Lovecraft, like they're all in the same universe. You know, like it's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of different horror things, but they're all vaguely tied together. So do you kind of try and stick in the that same universe model, or do you just do different stories that are kind of unrelated?
For the most part, I do different stories that are just completely unrelated. Some stories have a shared universe, some of them. Others, but most others, it's just they're self contained. Sometimes, though, I like to think that I can just weave, like I would write a story in a set universe or a set setting, and then later I write another story that just sort of ties into that same sort of universe in a way, or that same world, or even just the same setting. So it's it's up to my discretion, at any given point. I don't typically plan it. I'm very much a what's known as a pantser, in that I will not, I don't typically try to plan out or map out anything with a novel. I just start writing and it just flows.
Okay, whenever I write something, I'm actually I know what Panther is. That there are a lot of people I've interviewed that that's their approach. I have the more like a maybe because I'm OCD, the more meticulous. Like I have to take a whole bunch of notes. Is that what you do? Do you take notes? Like even if it's not all interwoven, or is it kind of like
Nope.
whatever you feel like at the moment, that's what you throw in?
The latter. I There were times in the past I would take notes, but they were more or less just markers, ways I could get the ideas down, but not typically with hard markers that I had to follow. And then, later on I just ended up completely abandoning that method altogether.
When it didn't work out for you?
No, no, and I just found that I enjoyed it more when I was just writing it and just letting whatever happened happen. See,
Okay.
I hear people talk all the time about how characters in their stories do things that they weren't planning to do, and I'm just sitting here like, yeah, well, I let mine have a mind of their own. I just let mine actually be people, more or less.
Okay, so how long have you been writing? How long have you been putting stuff out? That's probably a better question. How long have you been putting stuff out?
Okay. So I've been writing ever since mid 2020. I've been publishing I published my first book, short horror story collection by the title of Damned Whispers. That came out August of 2022.
Okay, have you noticed a big difference in the way you approach stuff as opposed to how you did when you first started?
Very much so, actually. Through my time, through my early days on Reddit, especially, I learned certain things of what would work and what wouldn't in a narrative. Um, Primarily with the kind of ways I was trying to write. When I started out, I was trying to emulate the more old timey gothic style of storytelling because I was a fan of old gothic horror, um, reminiscent of the classic Hammer films. But I came to start developing into the more modern style of storytelling where it's not about flowery prosaic language but just rather everyday common vernacular and just focusing more on expressing real emotions rather than trying to find every fancy way of describing emotions.
Yeah, I would say definitely the Hammer films, and they follow kind of a general theme and pattern. I don't know if I'd say they're florid, like Lovecraft type florid, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Like you like to leave it a little bit more open so you can go wherever you feel like the moment leads you, as opposed to
Yeah,
like if a direct script you have to work off of.
yeah.
So, are you do you have like a broader plans? Like, are you eventually gonna like try and develop a trilogy, or you're trying to develop something for a screenplay, or like do you have more in mind besides just putting out stories?
I have a good bit in mind. My ultimate goal, Mr. Hank, is to break into writing horror full time. Just being able to make a living off of writing horror, doing the one thing I love. That is that is my mission in life, and that's not an exaggeration. As far as other broader plans, I have one manuscript currently that I want to seek mainstream traditional publishing with. And I do, at least as of now, still have some working gears in motion for that. I'm also in connection with several indie horror film producers, not to adapt any of my books, but to help break me into wider audiences. Um, Currently, right now, I'm working uh, close handed with Forever Entertainment, and I even have my own weekly podcast show with them called Broken Bodies and Minds that airs every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. live on YouTube and Facebook.
And
And
how long does that run? Is it like a half hour, an hour, or what?
usually an hour, sometime possibly upwards of 2 hours.
Okay, and
And we
is
talk
it like
about
live streamed?
yes, it is. And we talk about different films through the ages. We're a relatively new thing, but the way I think we're going to start trying to go about um, our content is we will pick a film, one horror film from older times and one that's more recent to do a side by side comparison of how horror cinema has evolved or possibly devolved through the ages.
What's your take on that?
My take on what?
Whether it's evolved or devolved.
I think as a whole, mainstream horror has been watered down. I think the horror genre has been subjected to numerous pussifications. I believe that we're in an age where PG-13 horror just seems to be the norm. And whenever I watch it, I'm just like, this could be so much more. You could do so much more than this, but
Yeah,
you
but
want to
if
pull
you look at
the
like the
plug.
Art the Clown movies, like nobody even got away with anything close to that like 10 years ago.
Oh no. So notice though, I'm talking mainstream horror.
I'd say that's pretty mainstream. Just maybe it's my circle because everyone that I know has seen it, but like it might not be. Well, people don't even really go to theaters that much anymore. Ever since COVID, it's like it's all streaming.
So what I mean by mainstream, I'm talking about big budget production houses like Blumhouse,
Right. Okay.
A24, um, big Hollywood productions. What Damien Leone has done with the Terrifier and All Hallows Eve films is he showed that indie horror was the answer to saving a genre that was consistently just being stripped of its innate transgressive nature, um, and thus of everything that made horror what it was, in lieu of seemingly more kid friendly things that parents could, I guess, feel good about sending their precious little teenagers to go watch on a Friday night. And all I can think is, y'all need to stop.
The only pushback I would give on that is like I hear what you're saying, but like I feel like it spent like the probably I think the prime for like the best movies was like the late 80s when they had a bunch of stuff that were like strong stories and they had horror like the very first Nightmare on Elm Street, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There were a bunch like the first Pinhead that had like this, like Hellraiser, like they had like a strong story and they had some like graphic horror, but it wasn't the whole thing wasn't about just graphic horror.
Okay, so in certain ways, I want to agree with you. In other ways, I can't. The 80s was prime time for classic slasher horror, which everyone knows followed a very basic formula, and it worked. And let's face it, everyone remembers those films not for their story, but for the creative ways in which the killers could maim and dismember their victims. Um, but
But
I
I
see.
would say it was like all the same formula though, because like there's nobody can say like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Pumpkinhead were the same thing at all.
No, no, but back then, no, I don't agree that it was more story oriented. Um, most of them, at least, didn't seem that way at all. But at the same time, back then, again, it didn't feel like horror cinema was undergoing such censoring scrutiny. It didn't seem like people were so afraid of showing blood or showing brutal death scenes in a film like they do nowadays, where it's like they try everything they can to have that covered up or happen off screen. And it also feels like a lot of newer films, especially from Blumhouse, just try the most trendy and yet most tired concepts.
Right. Well, I think there's a big problem with people like just playing it safe with everything. Like they make like sequel number 10 or whatever, as opposed to like something new. Because they're like, well, at least
Yeah.
there's an audience. It might be crap, but there's an audience.
Um well, sometimes. Other times, other times as we found out even back in the 90s with certain series like Halloween, they start fans start to realize that there's not much that can be done with this storyline without just completely having to dismantle it anyway to make a brand new narrative within actually work.
Right.
Um
Well, often the story is told in the first film, so they just kind of rehash it and he's a little bit weaker every time.
yeah, yeah. Or same with Jason
Yeah.
um and
All
Freddy.
the Friday the 13th, yeah. All those movies, in fact, like Pumpkinhead, the first one's good. They suck after that. Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one's good, and they steadily get weaker until eventually it goes to space. And whenever a horror character goes to space, it's bad.
Yeah, space except for Alien.
Well,
Space.
Aliens started in space, so I'll give
Yeah,
that a break.
that one's the only one where that was like one of the first times sci-fi horror like reached that kind of level where it worked. But yeah, everything else space was always where good horror franchises went to die. Um
Unless they started there, like one of my favorite movies ever is Event Horizon. That's
yeah,
all in space.
yeah. Well, so yeah, space age sci-fi horror notwithstanding, obviously. But things that started grounded here on Earth and then all of a sudden you want to fist fuck a space storyline into it, you're asking for trouble. They did it with Leprechaun.
Yeah, that's
They did
exactly
it
what I was thinking. Yeah,
they
they do
did
it
it
with
with
the
Pinhead,
pinhead. Yeah.
then with Jason. And I think by the time Jason X came out, they finally understood and learned their
Well,
lesson.
I think with Jason X is like you just knew it was gonna be so bad going in. You wanted to see how bad it would be.
Well, that is absolutely right. And funny enough, even the production company, no part of that production was taken seriously because they knew that the only reason that movie existed was to tide fans of Friday the 13th over until 2003 when they could release the movie people actually fucking wanted, which was Freddy vs. Jason. Like seriously, that's the
I
only
I
reason
feel like
Jason.
they could have done that so much better though. Same with like Aliens vs Predator. It's like it's a good story until they like enliven it with the movie, and they're like, dude, you mishandled so much of that.
So okay, I liked Freddy vs. Jason for what it was. I didn't take it too seriously. I just enjoyed watching, the two icons. I do agree there were certain things that could have been made better. Like Freddy only gets one kill in the entire film, which I always kind of had to frown at a little bit. With Alien versus Predator, I actually liked the first film in that series or in that duology. I liked the first Alien versus Predator. I thought it was done really well. I do understand that a lot of people hated it because it got a PG-13 rating,
Well,
which meant they
I like
toned
the
down.
first half of it, but I think at some point it just got very, very like cliched and cheesy. When there's the female who's like she's a warrior, so she kills one of the aliens, so the predator then gives her an alien head as a shield. I'm like, come on, yeah.
I thought that was awesome though. Like she befriends the predator. I actually kind of like that. Because and it does make sense because unlike the alien whose nature is much more feral and primal, the predator is much more calculated. He's a hunter and an actual alien warrior. So he has a sense of honor about him.
No, I can see how, like, if it was told well, it would make perfect sense. I just didn't feel like they told it well.
Ah,
I'm nitpicky. I know.
no. Now, with the second movie, they were like, oh, okay, they didn't like it when we had a more solid narrative, so we're going to scrap that and just opt in for extra over the top gore. And they did. And whereas at least the first movie had its fans, nobody was coming to try and defend the second movie, Aliens versus Predator.
Did that movie even break even?
I don't know. I don't know, but nobody was coming to its fucking rescue.
All right, man. So, shout out again where people can see you. We should probably discuss it on one of your podcasts where you discuss like what films that we're seeing. But give a shout out to how people can find your stuff, throw money at you.
Right. So my books, like this one, Bloody Shores and Other Nautical Nightmares, um, is available on Amazon, godless.com, and signed paperbacks are available at my website, www.corpsechildsanctuary.com/shop, as well as all 22 of my terrifying catalog.
Okay, awesome. And if people want to get a hold of you and get one of those signed copies, are you saying it would be on your website or would it be via the publisher or how?
No, it would be through my website. Um, through the aforementioned website, signed copies of that book and all my other books are available straight through me.
Okay,
Um,
give us a shout out to the website again.
www.corpsechildsanctuary.com/shop.
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks,
And
man. Do you have anything else you want to throw out here to the social sphere?
And you can find me on Facebook at Thomas Stewart. You can find me on Instagram at Corpse Child Sanctuary. And you can also find me on TikTok at Unholy Corpse Child.
Do you do those dances with the tutu on
No,
TikTok?
no, no, though that admittedly, maybe that would actually make my videos go further. And who
Maybe
knows, maybe
dance
people
with
would
severed
pay to.
body parts or something,
That would be an interesting idea. Too bad I don't have any severed body parts.
Allegedly. All right, well, thanks, man. Thanks for doing this. Do you have anything else that you want to throw out there?
No, other than sweet night.